All right, everybody, today we're going to talk about square numbers. So a square number is any number multiplied by itself. And the two terms that you're going to want to know here is the word base and the word exponent. So a base is just the number that we are multiplying. So let's say we had 3. Oh, let's make that a different color. Let's say we had 3. And then our exponent is a small little number up at the top. And what that tells us is how many times we are going to multiply the base times itself. So in this case, what 3 squared means is that we're going to do 3 times 3 because we're going to multiply 3 times itself 2 times. So 3 times 3, which equals 9. So 3 squared equals 9. Now, the cool thing about square numbers is that when you make an array of them, that their array actually makes squares. So square numbers make square arrays. So if you have, for example, right here, we have 2 squared. And if we look at our array, you have 1, 2 in each of your rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4 makes a square array. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then same thing with 3 squared. So 3 times 3 is 9. And if we put 9 of these in our 3 rows of 3, it makes a square. Same thing with 4 squared. So 4 rows of 4 will make a square. So 4 times 4 is 16. So the other cool thing about squares is if you look at a multiplication table, it actually makes this little pattern. So when you use your multiplication chart, you're going to multiply 1 times 1. And when you come together, you get 1. 2 times 2 would be 4. 3 times 3 would be 9. 4 times 4 would be 16. And the cool thing, what I always thought was really cool about this is that it actually makes this diagonal along here because you're doing each number times itself. So that's another pattern that we can find, another cool number pattern we have. So when you have an exponent that's just 2, like we talked about, you have 2 squared, which means you would do 2 times 2, right? And that equals 4. But then the question becomes, what if you had an exponent that's more than 2? So let's say we had 4 to the third. Okay, so that would be 4 times 4 times 4. So if we break this apart here, 4 times 4 is 16. And then 16 times 4 would be 64. So 4 cubed, or 4 to the third, would be 4 times 4 times 4, which actually is going to end up equaling 64. So that's what would happen if your exponent is more than 2. The numbers we're going to work with are the square numbers. So another special case that we have here is what if our exponent is 1? So let's say 9 to the first. It just means that you're going to have 9 times nothing, because you're only going to use 9 once. So anything to the first is actually going to be itself. So even if I had 100 to the first, it's going to be 100. Another odd case of this one's kind of crazy. Because technically, and really they don't write this out every time. So if I had 2 squared, technically it's 1 times 2 times 2. Okay, but it doesn't, most people don't include this 1 in here because with this 1, it's not going to change our value, right? Because any number times 1 is itself. So when we have, like we had before, 9, hang on. There we go. If we had 9 to the first, it's actually just going to be 9, or 1 times 9, right? If we think about it the way that we had it up here, 1 times 9. But if I had the number, let's say 5 to the 0, that means we're going to have 1, and we're not going to multiply it by 5 at all. So any number to the 0 power is actually 1, which I realize is a bizarre thing to think about. So even if I had the number 100,000 to the 0 power, it's still going to be 1. Okay. Now, quite frankly, the numbers we're going to deal with are just going to be our square numbers. So if we have a If we talk about 1 squared, it's going to be 1 times 1, which is 1, 2 squared, 2 times 2, which is 4, 3 squared, 3 times 3, which is 9, 4 squared, which would be 16, 5 squared, so 5 times 5, so that would be 25, 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36, 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49, 8 squared, 8 times 8 is 64, 9 squared, 9 times 9 is 81, 10 squared, 10 times 10 is 100. So if we just go to 10, 10 squared gets to 100. If we go a little farther, 11 squared, 11 times 11 is 121. And the very last one we're going to do, 12 squared, would be 144. Okay, so that is square numbers. Thanks for listening, guys.